What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. So, another one that was on our list for the 5th of March was the newest offering and sophomore album from Wolf King with their album, The Path of Wrath. I like that rhyme scheme.
It's fun to say.
This comes out on Prosthetic Records. This is, again, the second album. I believe this band formed around 2015, 2016. It's kind of fuzzy on that. They are from the Bay Area, known mostly for thrash. This is definitely not that. This is blackened hardcore. And I think this one, they kind of pushed the black metal side a little bit further in there, and we have a really solid follow-up here already. Now, we've actually seen these guys 3 times, at least.
I kept trying to think about that today. I know it's twice I can remember, but it might be 3 times.
We met them a couple times. Solid dudes.
Very.
I think we talked about, like, stupid shit on YouTube. Not us. Different stupid shit. This was before we were stupid shit on YouTube.
Yep.
But, you know, people falling down and sort of laughing about it. We actually got to see them here in our hometown in Toledo. And when we heard this was coming out, and after the last time we saw them, they were actually premiering some new songs from there, and we noticed that this is going to sound a little bit different than their debut. And not necessarily right away, because we get a cool intro song called River of Light, and it's an actual song. And I'm definitely going to come back to this later because it gets brought up later. But the biggest, doomiest riff, and I swear, it's like Matt Pike just was donating cool riffs left and right, because this has such a high on fire vibe to it. It's kind of doomy. The guitar tone is kind of murky and thick.
Hits you right in the ball sack, though.
I mean,
Doom unto thee, I give you. Instrumental. I like that, especially for an opener. At least it wasn't, you know, a bunch of noise.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And pulls no punches and goes right into the song Messenger of Death, which pretty much hardcore, gallops, dissonant riffing, shrieked vocals, and right away the vocals were something I noticed that were very different from the first album.
Yes.
These are way more blackened. Tons of reverb. It sounds like he's screaming down a hallway at the rest of the band. And when it comes down to like black metal, that's kind of the feel you want. So they kind of got the blackened atmosphere right out of the gate. Now, this song doesn't go like full tilt black metal boogie quite yet, but what you're greeted to are lots of like hardcore grooves. Like I'm talking like old Sick of It All, Earth Crisis,
Earth
cro-mags.
Crisis for sure, dude. And I even heard like some early Mastodon moments.
There's a lot of cool guitar work on here, and it's just the one guitarist, but he does a lot of stuff without doubling his guitars. And I really, really like that. There's some specific moments on here that I just was like, wow, dude, that was really clever.
They create a lot of atmosphere for not using the typical stuff found in black metal to create ambience. There wasn't really synth. I think I heard like a pinch of synth.
I think it was a guitar effect,
but it
maybe.
Might have been a guitar effect. It's layered using just their instruments, and it's done really well.
A cool thing on this album that I liked is that some songs are pretty much that blend of the two styles. Some songs are more straightforward hardcore. Some songs are more straightforward black metal. And then you have some that just kind of like pockmark different influences. Messenger of Death and Triumph of the Slain are particularly some of the big hardcore moments. Triumph of the Slain is just all about groove, pit-worthy, moshing, fist pumping. The riffs are notably chuggier. It isn't all about the atmosphere. Like, this one is just ugly.
Yeah, it reminds me of Vision of Disorder. Mostly their second album, Imprint.
Yeah, I mean, it's just heavy and relentless, and instead of, you know, like, kind of feeling evil and dark, it just feels hostile and just like, you know, raging youth, that sort of thing. And then you get songs like Wandering Soul and The Oath, which are decidedly more blackened.
Yes.
Wandering Soul has these gorgeous tremolo melodies and blast beats, and like honestly I heard like notes of like dissection in there, but they still squeeze in some really cool like hardcore moments in there, but they kind of pockmark it with blast beats just to remind you that it's still kind of black metal.
And I love that guitar tone, dude. That guitar tone is crunchy but gritty. It's like sand frosted flakes.
It really is. It's kind of like an all-purpose thing too, because it works without them like shifting around a lot of effects or anything. Like when it goes to the black metal stuff, it sounds still really thick and atmospheric. But when they get down to the chugathons, which there's plenty, it still sounds appropriately disgustingly heavy. Now, There was a bit of an issue with some of the tracking. Now, granted, we watched this as a stream on Decibel, and some tracks directly go into one another, so you really had to catch when it happened. We missed it.
Yeah, we missed it
times.
at least twice. Like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is the next song. Oh, shit. It flows really well. So either it's how the stream was with the titling, or it really does just flow that well. I'll be curious to hear it off the actual album versus...
It's interesting because it will do it mid-verse. Now, granted, that might be how the stream was set up, but it sounds like it could still work because it doesn't miss a beat. Triumph of the Slain and Sanctuary both just lock right into each other. And then the title track and Incantation also did the same thing mid-verse, I think, on that one, too. The title track, though, might have one of the catchiest riffs on the entire album. God, this is just a groovy monster of a riff. Yes. It is instantly infectious.
Path of Wrath reminded me, too, of early Intronaut.
Yeah, it had that kind of sludginess to it.
Yep.
The riffs are so damn heavy on that one. And then Incantation actually kind of sounds like Incantation a little bit. It has this big kind of doomy intro. The guitars are isolated and kind of droning in the beginning, and then when you hear this crawling riff that comes through, it's like, that would totally fit on an Incantation album or Disma album.
Or Crowbar even.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a little bit of a southern tinge to some of it, and again, this guy's riff wheelhouse seems to be really huge.
You get that breakdown on this song in particular, too. Had like the Dimebag squealies in it.
I think one of my favorite moments on this entire album comes on the lead on here, which is really interesting. It pretty much starts off as a main riff, but since there's one guitarist, he kind of just breaks into this tremolo and it turns into a really cool lead melody. Now, I like this in particular because he didn't double the guitars. Right. It was just him, and he kind of just let this thing flow naturally and turn into this really cool lead, and then boom, back to the riffs.
The leads aren't long, but they're very well done, and the guitar tone on those leads too fits in these songs perfectly.
I mean, you got to bring the murk there too, and they are murky, but they're pretty too. And you do get clean moments on here. The intro to The Oath, which really reminded me a lot of Opeth. It kind of starts off clean, almost kind of folky.
Folky, maybe a little ethereal. Like, it reminded me of like sun cascading through an open field in the Shire.
And then explodes into black metal, like fiercely ugly, atmospheric black metal.
And the vocals are very intense.
Oh, God.
Very bleak, very frightening.
And this is where one of the issues I had on this kind of comes up. They're clean vocals now. Now, their first album, I don't remember there being clean vocals at all.
I don't either.
I'm not entirely sure who's doing them. I think it's the guitarist who does all the deep growls in here, which, Jesus, that dude's deep growl is almost a puke.
Yep. Yeah.
It's so disgusting. It's awesome. I love it.
And the deep growls contrast really nicely with the shrieks.
Oh, God, it's great.
However, when the clean vocals come, I'd say most notably in the song Grief Portrait, where once again you get a very clean-toned, somber intro. Really nice. But then it bursts into this kind of tremolo-laden blast beat with shrieks and clean vocals.
It kind of reminded me of Alcest, which, admittedly, I'm not much of a fan of that. It's kind of shoegazy, but it's mainly the clean vocals that were kind of the issue. They don't really carry the song well. The screams are actually carrying the songs well, but they're so out in front, they're very prominent.
Yeah, the cleans are like almost metalcore-ish.
Post-hardcore, maybe?
Post-hardcore, and they're not, I don't want to say they're bad. He's in key, he's in tune. I don't know if that's what they were looking for.
It doesn't complement the song, but granted, this song has a completely different attitude. Like, a lot of this is, you know, dark, kind of hostile, especially with that hardcore energy. This one kind of strips that back, and it's a little bit more somber and forlorn. But not like doom metal somber and forlorn, like, I wouldn't say like suicidal black metal, but, you know, just very depressive black metal, I guess.
Well, and like the breakdown even, it was a little neurosis-y too. I mean, so like that kind of downtrodden somber too.
But, you know, the cleans didn't really add much to it. Now, granted, you know, second album, they didn't want to repeat the first one, and they haven't, for sure. But I think maybe this one, it's something that needs to be worked on a little bit more in terms of just implementing them. Because, again, they're not bad. I just don't think they complement the song very well.
Lastly, the song Eternal Hunger. Remember how we were going to talk about the intro and come back to it? Well, this is it. So big open chord, which is the opener riff from the first
I love
jam.
it. They bookended it, and it was like, oh my god, I get the full song with it.
Yep. And this is a very dynamic song. There's a lot of elements in here, but this is probably at least one of my favorite. Like, this is the gem, perfect way to close this album.
It's so damn strong. And it is riff city. Every riff just seems to hit home, and you got lots of different styles. You have that big doomy high on fire one, but there's also like some really cool palm muted chugs and tremolos that kind of scream Florida death metal.
There's a little Cannibal Corpse crawl. It's like the West Coast meets the East Coast.
A little bit there. And my favorite bit, of course, comes back to that riff, the opening riff that was in the beginning and the end. They do a really cool bit at the end where they isolate that riff and they kind of let the cymbals hiss and build up and just comes in and slugs you in the face and doesn't apologize, doesn't even offer to buy you a beer. It just keeps hitting you.
And then they have this Middle Eastern type lead riff.
I dug that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And again, didn't double the guitars. He just kind of hammered out because I like that. I think this is something they all want to be able to replicate live without having to like use a bunch of different effects and such.
I hope so, because the ending of this song is this nice little riff. I assume it's going to be dry humped live.
Oh, you gotta dry hump it. Overall, this album is really good, and I like the fact that they didn't just try to repeat what they did in the first one, which their first album's also amazing. Definitely check that out as well. This is just a solid album that kind of reaches out a little bit further into stuff they were kind of dabbling with in the first album, but it's still stuff they did well on that first album as well. They didn't try to just abandon any sound. I like the fact that they just expanded what they already did well. And I like the inclusion of some cool death metal elements as well. This album is heavy and relentless and punishing all throughout. Really doesn't waste much time. Tracked a little oddly, but who cares? You're just going to keep listening to it. We didn't go like, oh, wow, we missed that break right there. It was like, no, we were just kept banging our heads. It was pretty much just a steady, even flow of hostility. And
you really didn't catch it. There, again, if that's how the record actually flows, like, you're not gonna catch those songs. You're just gonna keep bobbing your head and go, oh, that's different.
Well, if it's tracked differently on CD, I'll know because I already bought it. So overall, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. This is a banger, a solid follow-up. I like hearing the growth in the band, and all of this will probably translate beautifully live because these guys absolutely kill it live. So whenever shows come back and these guys are on tour, go check them out and get this album because it's fucking awesome.
I'm also going to give it 4 stars. Much like Nick said, I like the fact that they tried something new and executed it well. So not only did they go outside their comfort zone, but they were like, screw it, if we're going to do that, we might as well do it well, and they did it really nicely. They touch on a lot of influences. There's a lot of styles represented here that all transition pretty nicely. And like he said too, these guys are absolutely killer live. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check out Wolf King. When tours come back, if they're near you, please go see them and please pick up this album. So yeah, I may sound like a broken record or a copycat, but that's what it is.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. Again, thank you guys for helping us hit the 4,500 mark. We are super appreciative and we want to keep growing this thing, and you guys are helping tremendously. So
speaking of that, since we did a giveaway at 4,500, our next milestone, of course, is 5,000. We are only 500 souls,
less than 500.
Less than 500 now, away from 5,000, which I never thought.
I didn't think 4. I didn't think 3.
Dude, I didn't think 3. I thought maybe 1 if we got lucky.
Maybe 1. Maybe 1's like, all right, we got some pity subs.
A couple people that just run into us at shows and go, hey, you guys are
okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I didn't think 5,000, so we're going to find some really cool things to give away at 5,000, and, thank you. Thank you
so much.
Yep.
And with that, we again thank you all, and we will catch you later.